Only real gamers remember this. Don't wear Thrasher if you don't skate. Oh, you like history? Name everything that ever happened.
Hey guys, I'm back. I promised you guys a video in February. Well, I don't know if I promised it, but I said that I will be making a video soon in February, hoping to film and upload it in February, and it's now March. I'm sorry about that. I have been uninspired. I've tried to create and got stuck and got writer's block, and then I just got involved in fandoms and lost my way. But I'm back now, trying to be creative. My hair looks like shit and my skin definitely looks like shit. So I'm already a mess before I've even started filming, and the mess is just gonna go downhill from here probably, but let's get into it anyway. I'm gonna start with the definition of gatekeeping, and if you Google gatekeeping, just the vague term, it comes up with the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. The phrase is used like, if you can imagine a literal gate and there are people keeping the gate, like a bouncer or a security guard, it's used like that. But you can imagine someone keeping a gate and not letting people have access to a particular thing, maybe to medical care or something like that. If you Google LGBT gatekeeping, to be more generalised, you get an article from SJW Wiki which says, gatekeeping is the process by which individuals or sub-communities are excluded from or policed by the broader community to which they belong. You can probably understand what that form of gatekeeping is. It can include things like white feminism, in like the feminism community, if that's a thing. Feminism that excludes people of colour or doesn't take their needs into account. Biphobia in the gay community. TERFism in the lesbian community. The TERFs recently made, well, it was not that recent, made a hashtag called Get the L Out, and were like fighting against trans people and trying to exclude them from LGBT. The TERFs wanted it to only be LGB, that is gatekeeping trans people out, like literally sort of closing a gate on people and not letting them into the community. And then the people supporting trans people started L with the T to show that they are lesbians who don't gatekeep trans people and treat them like shit, which is good. So these things, as you can imagine, are, and as you can probably tell, are exclusionary and they are discriminatory, and they're also counterproductive to achieving equality. So that's gatekeeping on quite a large scale, such as within like feminism and LGBT plus communities. This is a very large scale thing, and I'm going to refer to that in this video as traditional gatekeeping. I don't know if that's accurate, but I wanted a term so you guys can kind of know what I'm referring to. That side, like the social justice side of things, I'm going to refer to that as traditional gatekeeping. There's also a lot of fandom gatekeeping. That's kind of been going on for years as well. It's very old. It's the sort of thing like when somebody sees someone who's wearing a band t-shirt, ta-da, this wasn't planned, and goes up to them and goes, hey, you like Paramore? Name 10 of their songs, and tries to exclude someone from the group for not being like a real fan. And they might have like weird definitions of what they consider a real fan, so they can include themselves and push other people out of the group. Obviously within a fandom that's not the same as like marginalising an entire identity of people, but it's also kind of treating people badly, and it's othering, and it's just not a very nice thing to do. And I'm gonna probably go into why people probably do that in a minute, but that's another section that I want to talk about. So we've got traditional gatekeeping, which is more social justice and it's more about marginalised identities, and then the fandom things is like, oh, that person's not a real fan of 21 Pilots because their favourite song is Stressed Out, and like that kind of thing, which is obviously lower level but is still negative and not very good. So within fandoms, yes, I'm going into subsections. You can see how hard this was for me and my two brain cells to write. Within subsections of like all the different fandoms, you know, I mentioned the Paramore stuff and the 21 Pilots stuff. It happens with bands, and recently it's been happening with YouTubers, and I'm going to start talking about the Adrian Howell situation. Yes, the artist who made these works of art that you can't even see because they're too far away. We're going to talk about him. because some drama happened within his fandom, not the original drama that was like years ago. There's like recent stuff going on that I wanted to talk about. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably know this kind of thing. If you don't know who he is, I'm sorry. He's a YouTuber I'm a fan of, and I'm not going to go into him in too much detail because I don't want to go off on a tangent. But if you look up Adrian Howell, you can see the kind of videos he makes. He is just a very talented, good egg that deserves good things. I'm still going on tangents, I'm sorry. So I could have made a whole video on this Adrian Howell situation because it's been getting on my nerves for a while, but I didn't. So I'm going to incorporate that into this video because when I was thinking about this situation and wanting to speak about it in a video, I realised it did tie into the gatekeeping theme. So I'm going to incorporate it because I think they are very closely connected issues. So Adrian is a talented YouTuber, here he is, and his content is good. Like, he just makes videos that are consistently high quality, well filmed, and really enjoyed by people for their own right. Yes, he also has a brother who is a more famous YouTuber, but that doesn't take away his skill and the fact that what he makes is interesting to people. And yes, he's been through some shit in the past, but I don't think it's fair to sort of hold that over his head and label him as the one who was bullied in 2013, as if that's like all we know about him when he does all this amazing content. So I am a big fan of Adrian, and I decided to make another Twitter account in order to be like a fan account for him. I haven't done that to any of my other stans, but I did it for Adrian because I felt like his fandom itself is very small, and I wanted to sort of get together with other people and discuss his videos and fangirl over him. And it was a nightmare because there were so many members of the fandom, Dan's fans, who would try and search up accounts for Adrian and like screenshot them and get all their friends and go, hey everyone, let's look at this person. They're not a real fan of Adrian. Let's attack them. And that's not fun for anyone. That happened to other people, it wasn't just me. But the behaviour exhibited, Jesus Christ, was atrocious. It was a very weird situation because normally you have someone within a fandom. Someone within a fandom is gatekeeping it. But in this case it was people outside of his fandom trying to prove that people in his fandom weren't real fans and only liked him because of Dan or for whatever reason, because he was bullied or something like that. And then you would, if you were openly a fan of Adrian, you would end up having to justify yourself and go, actually his videos help me, actually they make me relax, actually I like him because I find him entertaining, actually please leave me alone. And there's no need to make someone have to do that. It's very exhausting on your energy. It was a very weird form of gatekeeping. It was like the people from the big bad fandom were looking at the people in the small fandom, and yes, a lot of people in the small fandom were in both, but they were just going, I can prove that that person doesn't actually watch Adrian and that person is liking him for bad reasons and that affects me somehow and I'm going to attack them. And I ended up just deleting my account after having it for 4 weeks. I kind of enjoyed having it, but some people just made it unusable and I ended up deleting my account, and I'm probably not the only one who's gone through this, who's a fan of Adrian, because of people who felt the need to, I don't want to say shelter him, because while you might think, oh maybe they're trying to stop him being bullied again and this is their weird way of doing it, they would also be saying that he's like crap and has no talent. So it wasn't even to protect him, it was more of a let's bully people who like a different YouTuber kind of thing. And I just wanted to discuss that side of gatekeeping because that's like an unusual type that hasn't happened before, gatekeeping from outside of fandom. I just wanted to bring that up. So a lot of the time, gatekeeping manifests in that way as like basically bullying. It can manifest as sexism and racism and things like that, and then within fandoms it's often one-on-one and it's often more of a kind of bullying thing, like one individual will be mean to another individual or will get their friends and get a group to gang up on them, which is just even worse. And like, why? Because they like a YouTuber or a band. It ruins the fandoms, which sounds dramatic, but it does. It ruins the fandoms when people are gatekeeping and not letting people enjoy things. But I do feel that there is some overlap between the fandom gatekeeping which is often one-on-one, or like a few on one, and the traditional gatekeeping, which is more against women, people of colour, or LGBT plus people. They often sort of overlap, or one can be used as an excuse for another. And I wanted to discuss the points at which those things overlap. So you often get situations where a man will see a woman in a Star Wars top and approach her and try and prove to her that she's not really a fan of Star Wars because she is a woman. It's just as simple as that. Loads of people know examples of that happening. Whether it's Star Wars or any other sort of nerd culture thing, it generally means a lot of like white guys try and keep this thing to themselves for whatever reason and not let anyone else into the community. Mara Wilson recently posted a story on her Twitter from, I think it's her blog or her website or something, where she was in a cafe or a diner and there was a There was a woman working there and she was wearing a Misfits t-shirt, and a guy came in, and a white guy, and tried to prove that she wasn't a fan of the Misfits and give her like a whole quiz to try and trick her into revealing that she was actually not qualified to wear that t-shirt. And the long story short, she like schooled him on everything to do with the Misfits and knew everything about them and left him sort of embarrassed in front of everyone. Which is a great story, but it's unfortunate when people expect someone to justify why they're qualified to wear a certain thing to like strangers. Like me wearing this, I shouldn't have to walk to the shop and think, oh no, a white man will try and prove that I don't really like Paramore. I feel like it doesn't really happen with Paramore that much, but I do have an example of it happening to me. So I was at the gym and I had a problem with my locker because I'd done something wrong with the padlock and I couldn't get it open. And I was just there in my gym wear, walking around asking for help. And by coincidence, my gym wear that day was a Nirvana t-shirt because that's what was clean. Biggest mistake ever, right? So I went up and asked a white man who worked there for help, and for some reason I told him that I tried to set it to 1989 for the great Taylor Swift album, and he said something very quickly, which I guess he mentioned the name of like a Nirvana album, but there was no context to it, and he said it quite quickly and I didn't really hear it. So I went, what? Like, just because I didn't hear him, and because it was out of context of, please help me, I was meant to set it to 1989, but then I closed it too soon, and now my stuff is in the locker and I can't get in. So I wasn't really thinking about Nirvana or anything like that, and he sort of quickly muttered the name of their album. And I went, what? Because I didn't hear him, and he went, ugh, you're wearing their t-shirt, ugh, in like a really disgusted voice. And then I had to sort of prove to him that like, I am a fan, and I just didn't hear what you said. And the album, he said, was like a word as well. And I said, how would I type that with a padlock that only has numbers? And then he sort of realised that he was making no sense and was being a dick. I don't know if he realised he was being a dick. But then he just went, oh, and then like eventually let me off the hook and let me get into my stuff. I think something like that shows how widespread that kind of thing is, because obviously he was at work and should have been being professional, and assuming he's not a really unprofessional guy, which is probably a bit kind of me, but assuming he's not a really unprofessional guy, he wouldn't do other unprofessional things or things that might seem sexist or like douchebaggery, but he was trying to sort of prove that a woman who wears a Nirvana top to the gym can't be a real fan. For whatever reason he's decided. And I think he just didn't have the awareness to realise that's what he was doing, but it was. So the Mara Wilson story kind of resonated with me a bit, because I was like, I think so many people have had that happen to them, not just women, that where they're like, yes, someone tried to prove I wasn't a real fan, as if it's their business. And I think everyone has like an example of that. That's like my main example. Now obviously I'm like just a white woman going to the gym having a minor inconvenience, and I know that other people have experienced far worse than that, but I just wanted to talk about how my own experience of it as a woman, as someone who's experienced that, because when Mara Wilson's story came out, a lot of people related to it, not just women, but a lot of people have been in that situation where someone's like, oh yeah, Panic at the Disco, name 10 of their songs. Like, people make memes about that kind of thing. And a lot of people relate to it, so I just wanted to let you know how I relate to it. It's happened before and it will happen again. that people feel the need to exclude someone from a fandom, maybe to make themselves feel more superior to them. I don't know. So sometimes traditional gatekeepers use the fandoms to their advantage rather than there just being an overlap between, for example, sexism and gaming or whatever. Sometimes someone who is sexist or racist or whatever will use that fandom to push their agenda, like Milo Yiannopoulos and all these Gamergate people who like literally don't give a shit about games and just want that as like a cover for their actual prejudice and what they're actually pushing. So whether it's about games or band or Star Wars, and whether it's about sexism or racism, homophobia, ableism, transphobia, etc., it's basically a situation of being exclusionary and pushing people out to keep yourself separate from certain people, maybe to push them down so you can elevate yourself above them. I do think it comes from insecurity, because I don't know why someone else would do that if they already felt that they were like really great. I don't think they would need to push other people out. Whether that's individuals or whether that's whole groups, I do feel like it does come from someone wanting to raise themselves above other people, maybe because they're insecure. And maybe just to gain supremacy, and because they don't want to be equal with other people, they want to be above them, whether that's for racial reasons or gender reasons or what have you. That's just something I wanted to discuss, and I just had this on my mind for a while and I just wanted to talk about it. This is my therapy, this channel, so I hope that you found it interesting and let me know what you think about it, including the Adrian situation, because that doesn't really fit in with like the traditional gatekeeping, but it is like using fandoms as an excuse to like bully someone or be mean to someone, which maybe someone's doing because of being insecure or something like that. I just thought that was an interesting point to add in as well. It probably doesn't directly link to the other things, but I do feel that it's connected, so I thought I'd include that story as well. So let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if this has happened to you, because I like to hear you guys' stories. Actually, I do like to hear when you give an anecdote that's happened to you or that you've witnessed, and we can discuss it together. If you're new here and you want to see more, click subscribe, ding the bell, hit the like. I think it helps me, maybe it doesn't, but it would be nice if you give me a like anyway, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!